Is this your first time on Ember Island?
No, I used to come here years ago.
It's a great place, if you like sand. Yeah, it's like, welcome to Sandyland!
Your arms look so strong.
Yeah, I know. You're pretty.
Together, you and I will be the strongest couple in the entire world. We will dominate the Earth!
I gotta go.
Hello everybody, and welcome back into another video. I'm FranklinTurtz, and I'm your internet turtle. Today we are here with our Year 7 Season 3 Warriors Den overview. All cards out on the table here. This might possibly be one of the biggest updates that they have ever done, and definitely one of the biggest updates they've done in quite some time. There's a lot of exciting things that they're going to be doing with this update, a lot of things that people have been asking for quite some time, and I'm very excited to get into this with you guys, so let's go. So first things first, starting out with the general theme. The general theme is about a party that the Blue Lin are hosting. Just this big shindig, everybody's invited, it's supposed to be a fun time, whatnot. But there's an underlying aspect of spookiness to this. They had a certain word for it. I don't know if I can really remember it exactly.
Deceit here. Deceit.
Yeah, that one. There's also some pretty neat rewards in the Battle Pass and the Season Pass. I'm not going to go into everything naturally, but there are some very clear links to the tale Journey to the West. If you're not familiar with that, it's an ancient Chinese tale, ancient Chinese story about Sun Wukong, Wukong the Monkey King, traveling across China with some friends that he makes on a big quest. There's a lot of fun stuff, interesting stuff here, like the Tom and Jerry execution. As well as all the different, very ornamental and very interesting looking weapons and multiple faces on the weapons that are just constantly staring at me. But nah, a lot of this is quite cool. You do see, obviously, design team is always hard at work, and they always do bring us very unique looking pieces for sure. A lot of work goes into all of those. The following patch notes changes that I'm going to be going over here can only be described in one way. Yeah, they're pretty good. Let's get into those. So the first big unexpected change is that they're removing Reflex guard. Yeah, removing it completely. Gone. Reduced to atoms. I'm very excited for this personally. I know a large populace in the For Honor community is excited for this and has been wanting this for quite some time. I did post a TikTok about this about a day or two ago. And I wanted to see, garner interest, see how many people were excited for this. And I did get a decent amount of comments saying, skill issue, why are they removing it, blah, blah, blah. Personally, for me, now obviously everybody's going to be different to some degree, but personally, at least to me, I don't feel that Reflex Guard was a skill-based thing. It was more of a housekeeping-based thing, if you get where I'm going with this. Essentially, it doesn't really take skill to wiggle your guard around a bunch. You just would have to remember to constantly wiggle it around, and then the second that you forget about it, especially in a big team fight or something, you would just get slapped with free damage because you just didn't have a guard up. And so I don't really see how it links to skill. It's more so literally just an annoyance factor, and I'm very glad that they decided to finally remove this. They did describe that it took them quite a long time. They had to go back and make new motion capture animations, so it definitely took them quite a while to do that. But it is nice to see that they are willing to go back and look at these older features that they've had ever since the beginning of the game, essentially 7 years ago, and actually, reverse those or outright remove them if it's something that truly is unnecessary for the game. For those that don't know, maybe people that are new to the game, or people that maybe just haven't played in a heckin' long time, Reflex Guard basically is when that guard does disappear, and it's on all of the assassins as well as Shaolin, because he trends more towards the assassin side of things, even though he's technically classed as a hybrid. But all those guards are going to be static guards now, which means you will no longer have to wheel them around. They're no longer going to turn black, fade away, that kind of stuff. Next, we move on to individual heroes, individual characters' kits, and their changes that they're going to be undergoing. Lawbreakers first here. Long story short, they're taking what worked in the previous 2 testing rounds, and they're scrapping the rest of what didn't work. They're essentially trying to make the character more of a threat, fight-wise, more offensively, and not worry so much about his defense. He's still going to have good defense, but he's no longer going to be as much of a wall as we all know him to be. So to start with his impaling riposte, the impale after the heavy parry that everybody used, 9 times out of 10 because it was the best punish, one of the best parry punishes in the entire game. That is now only on light parries. I know this was a hotly contested issue, and as a Rep 70 LB myself, he was the first Rep 70 I ever had. I do technically classify myself as a Lawbringer main. I do think this did need to go. I've talked about this in multiple other videos, other streams as well. As much as a fanboy I am with Lawbringer, I have to put my fandom aside and see what would be best for the game. And what would be best for the game is if he didn't have that insane punish that he got off of just a simple heavy parry, something as simple as a heavy parry. So they're removing that. They only put it on light parries. It's still going to be obviously a really good punish to do. You're still going to be able to ledge people if you light parry them and whatnot. It's just not going to be as easy to get with just a simple heavy parry anymore. So I do think that overall is a lot more balanced. All of his heavy openers are not going to chain to that Swift Justice, that little boop, that little tap that he has with the butt of his pole arm here, his pole axe. And also with the Swift Justice, it does count as that second hit in the chain, which means it does chain to his unblockable finishers. Now, as you can see here, his chain heavy attack, so that second heavy in the chain, is going to get that hyper armor, but that final heavy, that unblockable heavy, is not, which I'm very happy to see. The unblockable heavy already has an amazing hitbox, does great damage. I don't think it needed the uninterruptible stance as well, the hyper armor as well. But that chain heavy will be nice to essentially trade with people a little bit better, especially when you're in the middle of a team fight. It'll encourage you to throw it a bit more, I would say, instead of getting interrupted all the time from it. And then as well, he also gets that top heavy finisher that soft feints to the guard break. In case you guys were not aware or did not see this happen, it was kind of a non-mentioned thing that they put in there. I don't remember them specifically mentioning it in his testing ground changes, but people did notice, myself included, that he had a soft feint on that top unblockable, that top heavy finisher unblockable. They're now officially mentioning that is going to be an official part of his kit. Next, he has his long arm. The long arm does guarantee any side heavy, so not just the left or right, but also any heavy, I guess I should say, basically. Not just the left or right, but the top heavy as well. And because those are starter heavies, I believe they're starter heavies, it also allows you to chain to Swift Justice, which will then let you chain to your finishers as well. So he does have a lot of ways to get into his offense, a lot more than he used to, for sure. You see Blind Justice as well also will initiate chains and does chain to the Swift Justice. He's big on chaining to that Swift Justice, using the Swift Justice as the second hit in his chain, especially when you're in a 1v1, I would say. Obviously, if you're in a team fight, you're probably going to use that chain heavy a little bit more because it has the hyper armor now on it, but the Swift Justice will be nice, especially in the 1v1s, to get quickly into those unblockable heavies. They also lowered his stamina costs, thank God, because his stamina usage was very annoying, especially on that zone attack. You would do 2 of them in anything, in the minions, in fights, and you would just lose all of your stamina. So I'm really happy to see that you're going to be able to actually use them as more. So I'm actually able to see that I'm actually happy to be able to see that he'll be able to zone attack a bit more, be able to use some of his moves a bit more instead of using a lot of his moves and using up all of his stamina. Because that was another issue as well, is he would just, in order to get into his chains, into his finishers, he would use up so much of his stamina. And so now hopefully with a bit of these changes, he can get into them and still have a little bit of stamina left over to feint and mix up a little bit more. They also did talk about specifically removing stun. So not just all stun and stamina damage, stamina pause, all that stuff on Lawbreaker, but they also talked about more broadly in general that they do 100% have plans to eventually phase out all stun and stamina pause and stuff like that.
Stun doesn't really bring much to the game, flashbangs don't really quite work with what we're doing. And stamina damage and stamina pause, we're removing them over time on pretty much every single hero. the logic here is we want like stamina management still has to be a part of the game, right? You still have your stamina bar, you still have to do stuff, but we don't want it to be impacted too much by what your opponent does. It's how you manage it yourself,
Right.
and not how your opponent manages to drain your stamina bar.
Yeah.
It also has like big knock-on effects into when you're out of stamina and stuff that we don't really want to get into. So with this, it makes the hero a lot healthier to play against.
And then the last thing here is that I believe they're lowering all of his damage, but he also has a few things sped up to compensate. So it's just a general, you know, lower damage, higher speed kind of thing. Able to throw more moves, but each move does a little bit less damage. Super stoked for these changes. This seems like the healthiest version of LB that we've seen in months, literally maybe years. So I'm very excited to jump in and get back to my roots, get back to my law boy. Next we have some pirate buffs. I know, crazy. After all these different nerfs that she's had and stuff, I think the devs have finally realized that they have completely over-nerfed her. I'm pretty sure she's widely regarded by most people with at least one brain cell that she's one of the worst characters in the game. I know multiple tier lists that I've seen put her, if not at the very bottom, pretty close to the very bottom. And so I am glad that they're finally giving her the love that she does deserve, because I definitely don't want any character to be like F tier, you know what I mean, like bottom rung. I think every character should be able to fight with every other character in one way, shape, or form and be somewhat viable with every character, at least at, you know, somewhat higher MMRs at the very least. The ways that they're buffing her is that they're buffing up her damage a bit for her heavy finishers by 2 damage. The guaranteed pistol blast that you get after any heavy that you get is able to recover you by 100 MS sooner, and it does also pin for a little bit longer, so gank wise she's going to be able to help with ganks just a little bit more. They also buffed up the recovery for the non-guaranteed pistol blast, the one where she like reaches out and like sticks her gun into your abdomen. That also is a bit faster as well, so she'll be able to maybe dodge recovery out of that, do her moves out of that a bit faster. They're also buffing up her Cavalier Dance, which is the, I believe, the dodge forward, unblockable, hyper armored heavy. The attack is a bit faster now, and you also get a bit faster hyper armor, so this is encouraging to see. Hopefully they give her a bit more buffs. Honestly, with the amount of power creep that's been in this game the past like year or two since she's been released, I definitely think that they could bring back a lot more of the stuff that she had, and she'll be much more in line with the different characters that are in the game now that are very strong. Speaking of very strong characters, another unexpected change. We got some Medjay nerfs. I know. All the doom and gloomers were saying that he would never get nerfed, that he'd be top tier forever. And you know what? Maybe he'll still be top tier after this, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Basically, they're lowering the damage for all the chain heavies and the finisher heavies, the ones that do the big boy damage. And they're also adjusting the weapon trajectory for them, because a lot of phantom range issues would happen where you'd be in a like 1v4 or something and people would be like maybe a yard away from you and you would still slap them with a external heavy or something. So like he'll still definitely be strong, I think. He's just gonna hopefully work a little bit better and not be as unfair as he was. I still think he's gonna be really strong, probably even, you know, close to top tier, if not top tier. But it's good that they are looking at him now. Maybe he'll receive a little more nerfs to damage and stuff. I still think he's very strong. But this is a good step in the right direction. And then we have Orochi changes, more specifically the Storm Rush. A lot of people have fallen prey to Storm Rush 100 to 0 optimal ganks. The whole issue with Storm Rush, especially in 4s, is that it would essentially repin. Pin is a whole mechanic in the game, essentially. Like, after a certain amount of hits, you keep pinning and you keep going into your chains and into your combos and whatnot with your teammates. But Storm Rush was unique in that it essentially reset that pin tracker, so you would essentially just keep doing it and keep resetting the pins so that they wouldn't really be able, the enemy wouldn't be able to essentially gain revenge the way that they should, and should be able to like essentially somehow fight people off. And so this was unique from other 100 to 0 ganks in that you really couldn't get out of it 9 times out of 10. And so what they're doing is that they're essentially taking away that pin mechanic. you're still going to be able to use it to gank with, but it's not going to be able to reset that pin counter constantly over and over and over again. So it shouldn't be as toxic as it was previously. They are buffing the damage on it to compensate. I have been hearing from people that do play Orochi, do know the character pretty well. Storm Rush in ones is not that great, and duels is not that great. It's pretty reactable by a large percentage of the population, so it's kind of tough to balance like what they'll do with it to compensate to make it still usable. I definitely think it'll still be highly usable in 4s. It just won't be as good with that resetting the pin feature. But as far as ones are concerned, maybe they'll do something to it to make it more viable. But as it stands, I do think this is a needed change. It's a necessary change. That was, again, by far the most difficult gank to not even get out of, to just deal with nonetheless. So I'm very happy that they're getting rid of that. And we got Hitokiri here finally. Obviously, we do have a lot of things to go over here with Hitokiri. Last but not least, we got Mr. Dunmaglass himself, Highlander, in the testing grounds. Fucking finally. Excuse my French, but man, it's been a long time coming. Widely regarded as one of the worst characters in the game, not counting obviously the bugs and stuff that some Highlander players can use to abuse and win, but definitely didn't really work properly. And so I'm essentially what I'm going to do here, because I don't want the video to run too long for you guys, I'm just going to rapid fire show you everything that they're adding to him. They're essentially not really taking anything away from the character. They maintain that people that used to play Highlander, people that do play Highlander actively, you're still gonna be able to play the character how you usually play him. They're just essentially giving him more tools and a few buffs here and there to make him more viable. The first thing they did is if you feint any heavy in your defensive guard, you're going to be able to fast flow into your offensive stance. The second thing that they did is they nerfed the amount of distance that you get when you backstep light. Next thing they did, also including the lights, is that they took off the hyper armor on that second chain light. The next thing is that his defensive stance heavies are now a bit faster. That means on GB you are able to get that top heavy now. And then on those side heavies, you're not able to get them on GB. However, because they're a little bit faster now, you are able to, instead of flowing into the offensive stance immediately, if you want to stay in the defensive stance, if you parry a light, so that includes a dodge attack, obviously, nowadays, but if you parry them, you're able to do a side heavy now as well. So in a group fight, you're going to be able to answer sometimes, so that'll be cool. For a zone attack, they also allowed you to feint out of the first instance of it, and because that is technically a heavy, you are able to go right into that offensive stance. Highlander Zone also does get full hyper armor, definitely a nice way to cleave through minions. But not only hyper armor, you do also turn into the Scottish Copter.
Helicopter, helicopter!
You're also able to just feint out of the Celtic Curse as well, which is pretty nice. You weren't able to do that before. You had to commit to it unless you went right into the offensive stance. Now you're just able to cleanly feint out of it if you want to mix up people a bit more. And then we move on to the offensive stance moves. So they talked about kick, how it doesn't really work properly a lot of the time. And so they made kick feintable. They also made his caber toss faster as far as, well, maybe not. I don't think the caber toss itself is faster. However, throwing them to the ground is faster. And you're also able to do this straight out of a dodge as kind of a pseudo dodge attack while in offensive stance. And an even bigger buff for caber toss is that, you know, ordinarily with Highlanders, you weren't able to catch a lot of people just dodge rolling out of your mix-ups. Now the caber toss actually does work the way that it should and catches people that are trying to dodge roll away from you. So you can no longer escape the glass. You can no longer escape the thighs. Overall, I am absolutely in love with a lot of these changes. I definitely don't think we need a feintable kick. It'll be nice to experiment with, but I think with all of the extra stuff that they gave him here, I definitely think that the feintable kick is bloat, and that'll definitely go, especially once they, you know, do these testing grounds and they see. I'm sure people will be telling them as well. By the way, make sure when you guys play the testing grounds that you actually give honest feedback, because they do listen to it, and it definitely will help shape this character to be better in the long run. Again, like I said earlier, and a lot of people complain about too, the bugs that this character has, like, entrenched in the game. Hopefully they do work on those in the future. The way that they've been trending lately with these last several Warriors dens and going back and looking at these really old features that are entrenched in the game, such as Reflex Guard, it gives me hope in the future that they will be able to somehow go back and fix those. And I definitely don't want those bugs in the game. That you shouldn't be able to abuse bugs and just jankiness in a character's animations to be able to win fights. That's not how the game should be. And so hopefully they will go back and acknowledge that and work on that. Whew, what did I tell you? A lot of changes, This is a hefty patch for sure. I'm excited to jump into it. It's going to be starting this Thursday, so I believe the 14th. You can bet your bottom dollar that I will be streaming this on Twitch the night it's out, the day it's out, basically. So make sure you go and follow that if you haven't. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all you guys being here, leaving likes, leaving comments, telling your friends, family, all that good stuff about my content. It really does go a long way to help me achieve my dreams. But until next time, stay turtly, stay awesome, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.